Oh, welcome everyone. I know this isn't my usual sort of videos, and of course not my usual place I hang out in, but this is a story that's been on my mind that I wanted to tell. That I think you should all hear. Come, take a seat and listen to my tale. I need to specify that this story isn't to dox anyone similar to the people in this story. I'm giving everyone anonymous names throughout the story. I don't want that to be the result of my story. I'm telling this story to help others relate to it, learn from my mistakes, and take my advice on what healthy steps to take if they ever find themselves in the situation I was in. I have to also note that I am going to be as truthful as possible, but know that I am also going to warn that I only have my side of the story. However, that doesn't really matter if the story isn't the whole story in the situation. What really matters is that my feelings from the incident are real from all of it. So sure, my side of the story might sound biased, but it's the only side I have. These are some warnings in the story as well. This story talks about very sensitive topics I hold personally close to my heart. About trust in friendships and trust in love. All for it to crumble into nothing and stomped on by people I had cared for. How this affected my mental health negatively. How I viewed friendships, how I viewed love, and how I viewed myself for a good period of time. If any of the topics on screen are uncomfortable for you to hear, I understand if you choose to click away from this video. You may always return to this video if you need to hear my story in order to help yourself in your own situation. But of course, I hope to see you all in another storytime animations that I do plan on making in the future. Thanks for showing support by clicking in the first place anyway. To start off, it's best to go to the beginning. It's 2019. I was a sophomore in university, trying my best in my studies and finding time to balance the work with play. Like many others my age at that time, I went to play video games in between studies and responsibilities. This is where I met my then partner, which for this story we'll refer to as Percy. Percy and I met through a game of tabletop sim, where we bonded through the game and eventually began to date. Note, I've never really dated at this point of the time. At least seriously. Like, you know how it is with dating early on, you just kind of never really connect with anyone so closely, and it only lasts for very short periods of time. Never really getting close to them was kind of normal for me. I really thought this one would be different though. That this was the one. I slowly tried to introduce him to my friends, but they seemed to butt heads a lot. Like, Percy would make comments about how my friends would put me down or had an attitude. I should have known it's a red flag, but at the time I thought he was looking out for me. That he was simply trying to do what's best for me. I voluntarily removed myself from my friends and began to meet his friends. My relationship with my parents was also not the greatest at the time. Conflicts and disagreements occurring with me and my parents were like clockwork. Wanting to get away from it all was a desire I had for a while. He even questioned why I even wanted to stay for so long. That I should just eventually make plans to live on my own sooner. To come over and see him in his country. I was put into a mindset in which I didn't need my family. That all I needed was us. That I needed him. This is isolation, which is a phase in which the abuser severs ties from friends and family on the individual. This is an early sign of abuse in a relationship. While intentional or unintentional, he was successful. In the first year we were together, this was my norm and what I thought was right instead of wrong. He chose what friends I could have, which happened to be his. I thought we would all get along as he trusted them. He got along with them, and if I got along with him, then I would get along with them too. Just a quick rundown of everyone in the group. The members were Roy, Flora, Jerry, Chris, Crystal, and Oscar. A little background is that Flora and Jerry were dating when I met them, and at that point, when I met them, they were dating for a whole 2 years. Everyone in the group were also people who were older than me, so in a sense, I looked up to them for wisdom about anything from video games to personal life decisions. I had thought these guys were my found family. I looked up to them and was open with them. I was under the idea that I'd have their back if they needed me and that they'd have mine. That was my mistake. There were little things I didn't agree with and had tiny bits of conflict with individuals of this group. From how I wasn't playing games right to opinions about topics that didn't seem controversial at the time. This seemed as if any opinion I had that didn't align with the group would cause a ruckus against me, especially when it came to Roy, Flora, and Jerry. I had grown to be friends with Chris, Crystal, and Oscar whenever they were on. They were nice and often heard me out about my thoughts. I tried to work things out with everyone to be the happy little family I had wanted out of this. This picture in which we would all save up to visit each other across the world after so long. This was basically my everyday for a year and a half after I met Percy. And that's when everything broke down. The start of my world falling apart. There's a comfort in being online, especially to those who are insecure about their own visual image, that the people who get to know you will know you for your true nature under the image behind the profile. However, this is a double-edged sword because this also gives a sense of confidence to those whose opinions are unheard, especially for those with very vocal opinions. No matter right or wrong, they will be vocal about their opinion because they know they have the safety of the screen from being harmed. This is where we get those really aggressive people who play games or dox other people on the internet that are so confident to say such hurtful things online without the fear of any consequence. The ones that will casually drop death threats without worry and even make content around such horrible things. The ones that allow others to be hurt and turn a blind eye on the destruction they leave behind. Percy and I had gotten comfortable with each other, to the point we took things to the next step of our relationship. A more personal step in the relationship. I've done things I'm not proud of, I'll admit. However, I was under the impression that it was normal for anyone in a relationship, especially in a long-distance relationship. We told each other secrets we wouldn't tell others. We showed sides of ourselves we wouldn't share with the public. I trusted him that we would be together and make things work out, even with the distance and the state of the world at the time with the pandemic following up. Until that very night. I was out at the time in a meeting for work. Percy was on a call with Flora and Roy, who are now together after Flora and Jerry had broken off their 2-year relationship just a few days prior from what I had assumed. Percy lives in the dorms of his school, so he has dorm namers who may drop by every so often. How it was set up was that obviously people of the same degree or program were often booked into the same building to make it easier for them to commute to school. One of the dorm mates was a girl that Percy had a previous crush on before we met. This is one of the things he told me when we were dating and had, quote, found out she was a lesbian. So he admitted he had no chance. However, that night changed his perspective. This is what he told me had happened. During this call, his crush came to his dorm to visit and have a chat with him. Politely, he took off his headphones to listen to her, but still left himself unmuted on the call as she chatted with him. Meaning Flora and Roy were listening to the entire conversation, while Percy couldn't hear what they had to say. After about a couple of minutes of chatting, his crush left and he returned to the call to hear Flora teasing him that he, and I quote, couldn't tell flirting when it's in front of him. From their point of view, this girl was flirting with him. This got Percy thinking about the interaction, about the whole thing, about us. Two days later, he broke up with me. I asked why this decision came to be and explained that not only that night that got him thinking, but he had grown tired of me. That I was too much for him to handle with my own personal problems. That waiting for me wasn't worth it, and that it'll seem like forever before I would come to see him. Keep in mind, this was during the first year of the pandemic. A vaccine wasn't even on the horizon at that point. So, the reason I couldn't visit wasn't just because I couldn't afford it. I was really just unable to go anywhere in the world due to the pandemic. After denying and pleading over text, it all came crashing down. We broke up, and the group was split into two in order to allow us to grieve. I felt lost. I fell into deep depression, as this was the first time I had really fallen in love with someone. I really appreciated the support Chris, Crystal, and Oscar gave me, who comforted me during this time, allowing me to grieve, but still ensure I took care of myself. To give you an idea of how deep I was during this time, I'll simply say that I couldn't sleep at night. I pleaded with my own mind to just let me sleep and not give me nightmares of the night we broke up. That I wanted to already be done with this grieving. I was in the bathroom one night with my mom in the next room. I stared into the mirror, observing what I had become. Staring down into the sink, I thought I was on the verge of just wanting to sleep. Wanting so badly that I would like in bed just to sleep and pray to sleep. That I just wanted to go to sleep permanently. My mom knocked on the door, snapping me out of my thoughts. I don't think she knew what I was planning on doing, but I think she had an idea where I was at the time, where I was mentally. I don't think she knows how much that night meant to me, her knocking on that door. It's never the solution, let me say that. And if you know someone who is in need of help, there's a number on the screen in order to help prevent the worst for that person. And if you are that person watching who is in this situation, know that it's not the end. There's more to life. Listen to the rest of my story and learn from what I did in order to get better, to escape the darkness I was in at that time. I grieved. I got diagnosed with depression and got prescribed medication to help with my sleep. The medication was too strong for my liking. Honestly, I was careful when I took it, as it would almost knock me out a few minutes after taking it. But I was getting better, slowly but surely. And then Percy reached out to me. This was the first time in a week after we broke up, and Percy had messaged me. He wanted to get back together. I know most people wouldn't get back together with their exes, especially when they were the one who broke up with them. However, being told that the breakup was a mistake on his part and that he regretted breaking up with me, I was desperate. So I accepted. I promised to be better for him, to be a better girlfriend and do the best I can in order to raise money to see him. I was hoping for things to get better. That's when it all broke loose. The toe that broke the camel's back finally came. A few days after we got back together, all of us gathered into a call, and suddenly, it was as if everyone was put into the interrogation rooms. There was a rumor going around that the reason why Percy had broken up with me was because Flora had convinced him to break up with me. That it all came from me. Even after they went through talking with Chris, Crystal, and Oscar, who were with me the entire time I had grieved, I was still pointed towards the accused. That I was the guilty party of the rumor, even when I didn't have recollection of saying the claim. But I was told to apologize, and given my state of mind, I gave in easy. I was desperate to return to a normal state of life, being happy with Percy and being able to hang out with everyone, my found family. I thought that if this was the only way to return things to normal, I'll give in and take the blame. This would turn things worse than it was from here on out. In turn of this string of events, Flora had requested to not be spoken to by me and those who comforted me in my grief. That it would take time for them to come to terms with everything that was, separating the group once more and causing the worst month of my life. Percy had promised to spend time with me and equally divide his time with his friends who didn't want to speak with me. This turned into 8+ hour sessions with them, and I only got barely 2 hours with him, as I always had to sacrifice my time with him to allow him time to sleep because he had classes the next day. When I brought this up, he began to accuse me of controlling him rather than being supportive. This is gaslighting. Oxford Dictionary states that it's where the manipulator uses psychological methods to question your own sanity and use their powers of reasoning to separate you from your gut instincts or logical reasoning of the world. That the manipulator makes you question your worldview and that their logic is the correct logic. This is how they are able to keep you on a leash, as you're often looking towards them for the correct answer. I was convinced I was wrong after that event, to the point no one would listen to me when I realized later I didn't have any recollection I had made any accusation of the claim. I was convinced that this was my punishment for not being enough for him, that I would eventually stop being punished once this blew over. A month had passed. Flora had allowed everyone back to their friend group. All except me. I kept asking Percy when I would be able to return to the group, as I didn't have anyone to spend time with throughout the day and I didn't have any classes anymore. That I wanted for things to turn back to normal like before. This person, who I thought was the person who loved me enough to take me back and wanted to help me make things right, the person I was tearing myself apart for to be better for them, simply told me it might never go back to normal, and it's not my problem. That's when it started to crack. I began to realize that things were never going to be right anymore. Things couldn't go back to the way they were in our relationship. From simple things like not finding joy in the games that we used to play together, or not even wanting to play games together from his end. Watching shows together online only for him to not pay attention at all to the show he suggested for me to watch so hard on. I don't like One Piece even more now because of it. To major things in the relationship, like every conversation we had, all he ever wanted me was for my body. Even in conversations where we talked about plans of me visiting overseas, I had asked him if there were any plans he had hoped to do once I visited there, like date nights to go to the town, show me around to the sights, and even just getting to meet his family. His response was that we would just hang out in his dorm, order takeout, and do that. When we wouldn't be doing any of that, we would play video games together on the computer, implying that I take my laptop at the time just to bring there to play when he's on his computer. When the idea of his friends visiting him came up during the time I visit, and how he would handle it if they still didn't want to talk to me, I thought he would propose a solution, like trying to have them schedule a visit another time, where he could spend most of his time with me, and when I'm gone, spend his time with them. His solution was that he would leave me in the dorm while he went out with them. That I could just go around town on my own if I wanted to explore so much. Yeah, A girl who would go explore around an unknown country to them with no place to go until he came back to his dorm, knowing full well that he's hanging out with his friends he would rather be with than his own girlfriend at the time. I was done at this point. I stopped caring, didn't really put any effort into the relationship any more than I should. And of course this showed, and he broke up with me once again, saying it was a mistake for us getting back together. It solidified then that he only wanted me for my body. Time and time again, he kept coming back to try and make things work out. Even after getting better, and when I was in my own relationship with my current partner. Continuously stating phrases that used to work on me, that he doesn't have to know. When I pointed out that his friends wouldn't like knowing that he still speaks to me, he simply says that they don't have to know either. I knew I was done. I didn't want that toxic relationship from both him and his friends. I wanted out. I wanted a way out. I just wanted to leave. Luckily, though, I had support to help me back from my grave. My message to you, someone who's watching this, who is in the position I was, or knows someone that's in the position I was in. It's okay to ask for help, to find new people to breathe light into your life. It may be a process to find those who will be that light. You'll have your guard up like a thick wall of steel, and that's okay. It'll take time to rebuild trust, not just in people, but in yourself as well. If you can, get professional help. Someone that can at least help you organize your thoughts in order to process it all. What's the difference between a real friend and a fake friend? Always seek someone who's patient with you, willing to listen and help, even if it's forceful. I had friends who forced me to go fishing with them in order to get out of the muck I was in, even when I wasn't sure due to the pandemic's second year at the time. They took me to the lake, even though there was hardly any fish in it, allowing me to talk about my trauma without any questions, allowing me to take a breath and realize there's more to life than just the space I was in. Showing me life is worth living for, worth fighting for, and there will always be people who will be more than happy to allow you in their space when you're ready to allow them in yours. Take it one step at a time. You're in no rush to know the answers you need to have now. You won't know if you'll find the perfect friends right away or find the perfect partner when you plan to. Life's funny that way. You can't plan for things you will encounter, both good or bad. But you can control how you react to it. And I think that's the best we could do. Knowing that we could continue and where we take that to. You just have to follow your gut. Knowing that healthy boundary that you have and finding those that respect that.